Hey, Greta, are you here? Hello, hello, hello.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah. How are you doing?
Yay! I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for inviting me on.
Hey, no problem. I'm just trying to get a little screen share action going here.
Okay.
Take just a moment. And, yeah, I just started the recording just so it's not a big deal, you know. We'll just kind of meander and do whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So I've got my website. The last time I saw you, we were doing a different show called the Read Rothbard podcast, and now we've shifted over to the actual Anarchy podcast.
That's a great name.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons we moved over. We thought that this was a little bit more Google-friendly.
And also, Read Rothbard sounds really intimidating.
Yeah, it's either you don't know about him, never heard of him, so it means nothing, or it means this guy wrote like 40 books and a few of them are 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
So it's
or read, or find some audiobooks or something.
Yeah.
But I really did like your. I think you handed me a business card, and I held on to it because I really liked the design you had on there.
Oh, well, thank you. All right. So I just kicked on my webcam.
Okay. Should I be doing that too?
You can, yeah, if you want to,
okay,
show it yourself.
Shoot. How do I look?
I see you. I see you there.
Okay.
So, Greta, should we mention your last name, or should we keep you as Greta?
No, that's fine.
And then,
go ahead.
Well, we have, with the shows and the sites, we tend to upset people, and so we don't have our legal name out there just because of public records. And, we bought our house, and so it's not hard to find the kids and my wife's address.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about that, too. I wanted to ask about the family, but I didn't want to say their names. I wasn't quite sure kind of how you felt about that. So, yeah, okay, maybe don't say my name, but I mean, they're going to find it out anyway. If they figure out the merch mom, they'll be able to figure out my last name.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the merch mom thing, because I think that's going to tie into a lot of our conversation here.
Sure.
So, what is it?
Okay, so look, honestly, and I know you work from home too, but I think that is that you?
Oh, that's my co-host Robert. He's joining us.
Oh, okay. So. Hi, Robert.
What's up, youngsters?
Hey, Robert. Do you have kids too?
I'm childless. Who is this?
This is Greta.
Hey, Greta.
Are you childless, Robert, or are you child-free?
Yeah, you can look at it both ways. Mostly just, one of those. What have you guys been talking about?
Oh, we just started talking about why we changed from Read Rothbard to Actual Anarchy, and why we have different names on the Facebook than we used to. And she was just about to tell me about her merch mom stuff. I don't know if we've started the interview yet or not. I was just going to kind of keep it real loose and conversational.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, what I might do is we could do like a more official start in a little bit here, but I could always make all of it available for our behind-the-scenes people, our Patreon supporters.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, why don't you, Robert, introduce yourself, and Greta likewise, and that way it's not like this weird thing between two people who know each other.
Well, I am Robert Johnson, and I've been doing the podcast now for 2 years. We used to be the Read Rothbard podcast, now we're the Actual Anarchy podcast.
Okay.
And I've known Daniel since I was just a wee lad.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you also live in Washington State?
Afraid so.
Okay. You're hoping to change that?
Yeah, I'd love to have some kind of mobile address. In case something crazy goes down somewhere, you want to be able to bounce out of there,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hear that.
There's all kinds of stupid posturing on both sides now between North Korea and the United States.
Jeez. Oh, man. So I was actually up in Seattle just recently. And that's a whole different story. But, honestly, I kept thinking, God, wouldn't it just be great if a nuke went off? like right now, the one time I go back, Yeah, dude, it makes me, it really freaks me out what's going on right now, and not in like a panicky way. Obviously, I'm like pretty far away, but it's terrifying. It's terrifying that it's like a joke on Twitter. It just, I can't imagine. And I don't know how old you are, Robert, but I grew up in Washington State as well. I remember having like nuclear bomb type emergency drills at school. Do you remember doing anything like that?
Absolutely. I don't remember if we ever did like the drop and cover stuff, but I remember watching, like I grew up mostly, I'd say the tail end of the 80s, and I remember there was a nuclear bomb movie that they played on regular TV, and I forget what it was called. It scared the hell out of me, so I was a big fan.
Yep, it was based on a book, wasn't it?
Nuclear Holocaust. You might be right about that. I just have terrible nightmare memories of just everybody dying in fire. I don't exactly remember the name of the movie or what, but I remember the movie just scared the shit out of me. Like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So I'm going to die in a big fire of death, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just out of my hands,
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy people on both sides, posturing and playing a game of chicken, and billions and millions of people's lives are at stake.
Well, I was reading that Hawaii is actually doing drills now, like the whole state. They're all doing drills for the possibility of something like that happening. So it's interesting. They're not doing. I haven't heard of them doing it along the West Coast. So
yeah, I wonder, is it geographically, Daniel, do you know if it's closer, if they were to launch missiles, would they shoot them across the Pacific, or would they go over the Arctic and they'd hit it like us in the north? Do you know?
Well, I imagine they'd attempt to follow like airline flight paths or something like that. But, they're a full communist country. I can't imagine that anything they got's really going to work that well.
Well, they might be able to get distance, but probably not so much with accuracy, maybe. Is that what you're saying? Or you think they would just splash down in the water?
Well, I don't think that they could actually pull it off, just getting it wherever they want it to go. I think it is a bunch of bullshit posturing, and they're a much bigger threat to themselves than to anyone else, I think.
You mean to the people of North Korea? Because I know that a lot of the UN talk has been about sanctions and military blockades and that sort of thing, which only hurts the residents.
Right, and they're already suffering under a brutal communist dictatorship. So, I mean, adding more to that kind of same action is just going to make it worse. And I don't think that really punishes the leadership there, per se. I mean, perhaps it destabilizes things, but I think that they've got such a strong propaganda arm.
Yeah, they've already convinced their population that the rest of the world is out to kill them and they're better off alone. And I don't know exactly from what Michael Malice talks about. He talks about how they're, I'm sure some people see through the propaganda, of course, but I know that they talk about how they've done interviews with people who have made it across into China and, grown up and whatever. And when they get across, they're amazed that the world isn't desolate and destroyed. Because the people of North Korea have to sell the lie that North Korea is this amazing abundance of wonder, right? And that the rest of the world is this nightmare, in order for people to want to stay there. And if that's abundant, where they're basically getting by and starving all the time, then they can only imagine what desolation the rest of the world is. So, I must know the propaganda, you're right, is probably pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if they think that's the good life,
Yeah.
and they're told it's worse everywhere else. But how is that much different than what we hear here?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think that I don't know how old you guys were when you started realizing, wait a second. We've got all of these terrible healthcare rates. We have, horrible birth rates for infant death mortality and maternal mortality rates. Just really, really terrible stuff. And it's like, wait a second, but we spend the most on healthcare. We're supposed to be the best, right? And then also, and I'm saying it too, and I'm saying it in a different voice, but I'm hearing myself say that word "we," that collectivist word, and it really bothers me. Really bothers me that we were all lied to, basically. That actually, have you guys heard of this show? It's called. It's about this homeschool family. I think it's on one of those BBC shows. It's this homeschool family. They live in the UK somewhere, and the mom's kind of like this prepper type. And anyway, whenever they're really excited about something, they just start going, USA, USA, and all the family does it. Anyway, that we all kind of grew up with that mentality,
Mm. Is it just me, or I'm getting some kind of crackling when you're talking, Greta?
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm too close to the mic. Is that better?
Yeah, that's way better.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, it looks like you got one of those condenser mics, and those pick up a lot of noise. I don't know if you have any input gain adjustments or anything like that on there.
That would be a Jordan thing.
That's all right. It sounds good enough for government work, like we're big on this Pareto optimum of we'll put forth 20% of the effort to get 80% of the quality. We're not going to kill ourselves to get the last 20%,
Oh, sure, okay.
I mean, our audience might be a little less happy about that, but as long as they can hear what you're talking about, I think that they're going to be okay, because you have a really interesting story to tell. And I think it's one of those things that once you start going down this rabbit trail of learning about libertarianism and anarchy and what freedom really means, then you start realizing, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to be just one of the sheeple and stay in my pen here. I want to see what else is out there. And I think internationalization and the permanent traveler status, we got a couple of questions in our Actual Anarchy Cadre group. It's our Patreon supporters Facebook group, which you're now a member of, by the way.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, so there's not just supporters, monetary supporters. It's also like our cadre, like-minded people and
sure, friends of.
Yeah, and so people have heard about that stuff and internationalization and how to earn money that travels with you. And all of those types of questions. And I really want to just treat this as a primer. I mean, we can go as long as you want. I mean, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. But there's no way we can cover everything in even that amount of time. I mean, you're starting a show, right?
Yeah, I actually just started a show. I recorded it last week. I was sick last week. I recorded it last week, got it up on, I think, Saturday. And then I thought, okay, it'll go live right away. And it didn't. I had to wait for iTunes approval, which just happened today. So I just have my very first episode up. I have 2 more, probably I can make it into 3 more podcasts kind of in the works. One's an interview. Another one might be an interview, but it's more of a review of a product. And then another one is like just helpful idea generating type of podcast, helpful stuff.
Yeah, and do you envision this like being an ongoing thing, like on a frequency? And I mean, because like I was saying, this is just a primer, and you have enough content to do a show. Probably you could talk about it every day if you wanted to, if you had the capacity.
If I had the time, yeah.
I know you've got a couple of kids as well, and so
oh man,
it's hard. I've got 2 kids now, and it is so hard to find the time. Like, the only reason I'm out here right now is because the kids are asleep.
Yeah, I know. And just before I jumped on this, because our kids were in bed, and then, our daughter got up and she's roaming around, and she knew that, we had this thing going on tonight, and we're like, get back in bed. Oh, man. That's just how it goes. So you asked the question earlier right before Robert jumped on. You said, you asked, how did it start? Kind of what were you thinking? And just being a stay-at-home parent, actually Jordan works from home too. His is a little bit different though. He has an office where he can lock his door. He puts probably these headphones on, and he can tune us out, and he can focus on his work. And that's great for him and what he needs to do. I just don't have that luxury. So being a stay-at-home parent is lonely. And I'm working on this thing called Merch by Amazon, and I'm doing all right with it. I'm really passionate about it. In fact, the reason that I went up to Seattle was for a conference, the first ever conference. And, oh, God, it was just so amazing. It was really great. It was great to interact with people who are ideas people. They've got not just merch going on, but they have 20 other side hustles. Or they're just starting out, and they want to know more. And so I don't know, a couple of months ago, I've always wanted to do a podcast. I always thought that would be a lot of fun. I like chatting with people. I love picking people's brains. I like finding out what other people have going on, see if it's something that I might be interested in. I've never been one of those people who has one single passion. I've just been like, oh yeah, I'm really into that. Then I go through it, and then, after a certain amount of time, I'm like, okay, now I'm on to the next thing. So, for me, a podcast idea was always in the back of my head. It's always like, oh, that would be an interesting subject. And then I started thinking about, just as I was doing this merch stuff, like, gosh, I keep having these situations at home happen while I'm working, and I wonder if other people are experiencing the same thing. And kind of from that, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to reach out there, and I'm just going to see who else is out there. And I'm in a ton of Facebook groups for this merch, and you can kind of get an idea of what people have going on, but I really am curious, what things are like at other people's homes, what they have going on. I know a lot of people have their kids in school, or maybe their kids are older. They can find things to keep themselves busy a little bit longer than my small ones. They have different energy levels that might play into it too. But I really just thought there was just I think that's a common theme is people who, and it's becoming more popular, people who are working from home. And now our family, I can't even believe it, but there are two parents working from home, and we have kids with us all the time, And so I mean, that's basically it. I just wanted to connect with other people, and I thought this is just, merch is one of those really simple things that I can talk about while I'm talking about this working from home type stuff.
Okay, that's cool. And so, that we've had our show, and it's kind of morphed into being about movies from an ANCAP perspective. Yeah. And it is essentially because we're having these conversations anyway, Robert and I, and then we started getting guests that were from the Tom Woods Facebook group and other areas, and we've had Adam Kokesh and Walter Block on.
Oh, nice.
But
hey, just as a side note, I met Adam Kokesh. He came down here back in maybe January or something. So I got to meet him when he was in town. We had a big Voluntarius meetup, and he joined us.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So my roundabout way was to let you know what this is. This is our version of interviews, because we approached a few people, and they were like, oh, I can't talk about a movie. or I don't want to do that, or I can't be on your show for 2 or 3 hours because I know that's what you guys do.
Yeah.
And so we started also doing these straight-up interviews, which we call Anarchy in Action.
Okay.
And so that's what we envision this being an episode of, and it's going to be a YouTube video and also an article on our site, actualanarchy.com. And so we'll put links to your show and your merchandise on Amazon.
Okay,
and then
thanks.
also, do you have like a website that people will be able to access your shows?
It's just themerchmom.com. That's it.
Themerchmom.com. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I don't have anything else filled out. It's just like one podcast. I'm like, I just got to push forward. Just got to keep moving with this. Get the podcast up. I'll fill it out later.
Okay. Very cool. Well, so let's kind of level set everything here. So primarily what I wanted to talk with you about was about moving abroad and what are the steps to actually build up the inertia to do it, and tie that into your show and your merchandising, because that's an important component of being able to move somewhere else, is to be able to have an income that you can do from anywhere you've got an internet connection. But let's start with the background. How did you get into freedom, liberty, anarchy, etc.? And what prompted you to even consider moving international?
Okay, hold on. I have to drink some water.
No problem. And Robert, you want to jump in at all?
I'm curious to hear the answer to that. And I also want to hear about what she's selling, because I'm also getting into the merchandise game.
Okay, great. Okay, so, geez. I honestly don't even know where to start with becoming a voluntarist. So this is going to sound really crazy,
Cool.
but so right after my daughter was born, which was about 7 years ago, over 7 years ago, I really researched the topic of circumcision, and I was absolutely shocked at the procedure itself, the cultural acceptance of it, and then it became, okay, so there's this cultural acceptance, but people are also listening to doctors. Doctors are still recommending it. It's not recommended by the American, the Association of American Pediatrics, AAP, is that what it is? But doctors still push for it. It's pushed in hospitals. And so from that, there was that kind of hinky feeling of like, why is this still happening? It just, the whole thing made me feel really disgusted. I couldn't believe that there was a law, the FGM bill from 1997, that protected one sex over the other. And it just didn't make sense to me. And I think that was really when I started thinking really critically about those types of issues. And also one of the things that intactivists, that's what they call people who are really anti-circumcision and are vocal about it, that sort of thing.
Is that a positive connotation or a negative?
Yeah, I think it's positive. I think it was one of those things that intactivists started calling themselves. Some people don't like it because they think it sounds really cutesy or silly. I think it's fine. I don't care. But they talk a lot about consent. And there are, men who will wear shirts or have signs that say, I did not consent or we did not consent. And then, it started kind of jogging, this idea of, this is my body and that's your body. And, and consent, that's something that, we talk about with our kids all the time. Hey, you don't have my consent to touch me that way. Or, I nurse my little one, I say all the time, he'll tug on my shirt and I'll say, you don't have my consent. Wait until you have my consent, that sort of thing. But just this idea of, so then it's like kind of the property rights type thing, and thinking about, I wasn't anywhere near taxation as theft or anything at that point. But it really got me thinking, and then I'm on YouTube, and I'm watching all these videos, and you start to see the sidebar, and you start clicking on all that other stuff, and I
know who you ran into.
Who?
Well, if you're looking into circumcision, you're going to run into Stefan Molyneux.
That's right, I did. I sure did. So, and actually, I listened to one of his. He had like a big production on one of them, and at the time, Jordan had just started working at Microsoft, and I had been kind of sharing these libertarian or voluntarist type of information with him, but I had to dole out really slowly with him. But at the same time, the group that he got placed with at Microsoft, all these guys were sharing with him pretty much the same information. And so it was validating
wow.
to get this from kind of from both sides. But one of his friends that I felt comfortable enough to chatting with, or maybe it was a little bit later, but I said I knew that they had talked about circumcision, and I said, look, I think I sent him an article on it, and then I sent him the Stefan Molyneux article or video, and it actually changed his mind. And I don't know if he actually started listening to that show at that point, or maybe he had just started getting into that show. But then I started listening to it more because now I had somebody who was also interested in it. I didn't really know anybody else. I had not one other person to talk to about these ideas.
Seattle, right?
This was in Seattle, yeah. And so this was, I don't know, probably... So I think what happened was I became I started donating to Stefan's show, and I was in one of his other groups, and I became friends with somebody else, and then he invited me to the meetup where actually I met Dan and his family, and so that's coming full circle, but basically it was just a process of getting true information and having my eyes opened to this one specific subject, and it was almost like a part of my brain just opened up completely, and I was like, well, what else? What else have I been lied to? Lied to about what else is there to learn? What else is out there? Kind of a feeling, and so I was just really open to new information at that point.
Okay, so that's a pretty good journey. It sounds similar to mine. Mine didn't start with researching circumcision or anything like that, but I did run into Stefan Molyneux and started sharing that type of thing with Robert, and I sort of gave him breadcrumbs to follow along. We've talked about this before on various interviews and whatnot. But I'm curious to hear, after we met at that voluntarist meetup,
mm-hmm.
we all hung out several times until we moved away.
Mm-hmm.
We moved out to an island because I was like, I don't want to be in the city anymore.
I know, yeah.
It's being a little too Bernie-tastic.
Yeah.
So since that time, I didn't see you for a couple of years until we mm-hmm. ran into each other at the Mises event in Seattle last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when you told me that you were moving to Mexico.
Yeah.
So how did you go from, we hang out in Seattle a bunch of times, and the wives are having a good time, and the kids are having a good time, to deciding you're going to move to Mexico? Because my wife and I, we have looked at moving internationally,
mm-hmm.
and we've looked at, we even flew down to Gulch, Chile.
Yeah, you guys have traveled a lot.
Yeah, we've checked out Iceland, and we've considered Puerto Rico and a bunch of other
Yeah.
places, but it seems like you almost need to have so much put together and figured out
Yeah.
before you can do it, and you got to go fly down there and check it out, and that's like
Yeah.
10 grand because you got to fly the kids down,
Yeah.
you got to stay for a few weeks,
Yeah.
and all this stuff.
Yeah.
My job, I can work from home now, but I can't work from anywhere. I can work from,
Right.
I could live somewhere else in the United States and
Sure.
work just fine, but I can't go to Mexico and still do my job. So how did you get from that space 2 or 3 years ago to we're moving to Mexico?
Well, I don't even know. Let me take a look at my notes. Okay, so let me back way up. So, when Jordan and I first met, we were like the biggest stoners in the whole world, and that was one thing that actually really united us, was just that kind of lifestyle of like, we just want to get stoned and hang out on the beach all day.
So you guys were Gary Johnson libertarians?
We were really, like, it was just kind of like this romantic idea, wouldn't that be fun? And then we started saying, okay, maybe we should, Costa Rica was like the next big thing, We're like, well, maybe we should move to Costa Rica, and, maybe let's move to an eco village. So, we'd talked about those kinds of things, and there was always a reason why we couldn't, or a reason why we shouldn't, or a reason, and mainly it was because that was just like, it was just a dream. It was just something that we'd talk about, we'd just dream about. And so that there was always kind of an ongoing conversation, just this romantic idea. But as you remember, you visited our apartment. We moved right across the street from Microsoft, from their Redmond campus, just so that we could spend the most amount of time that we could with Jordan. I didn't like the idea of him, being gone for 14 hours a day. I didn't like the idea of a long commute. I didn't like the idea of it just sounded kind of lonely. I'm a really social person, and like, you guys have an awesome setup where you are, and like, I can like fantasize about living out where you guys are and doing that whole thing, but when push comes to shove, I know I could not do it. It's just too far out. I need to be around other people. So we were living right across the street, and when we moved there, I think we were paying like $14.50 a month for just a really crappy 2-bedroom, 1-bath. But we kept justifying it. Okay, well, he's making a little bit more now, and it's close. It meets our needs of our family right now, and those kinds of things. And then it kept jumping up in price and jumping up in price, and I was getting really sick. And even though he was coming home for lunches, not every day, but some days, and we would see him for dinner, and those kinds of things that we'd been working toward, it still kind of felt like it wasn't enough. And every time we had to, plunk down more money every single month, when our rent increased, it was like, what are we doing? We should just buy a house. And then we're like, if we buy a house, like, we have to like live here. Like, that's it. Then that's what we're spending our money on, and that's how we're investing our time, and that's where, and we knew we couldn't afford, right in that, Redmond, Bellevue, Redmond vicinity. We knew that just was not a possibility for us. It was just too cost prohibitive. And so then we started thinking about, okay, now we'll just have to move out to like freaking Duval or something. I don't know. So every time we thought about that, I'm like, I can't do it. And I don't want to live in a fixer-upper, out in like Carnation or something with, you having an hour and a half commute each way. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So we just kept paying more and more rent. And by the time we left, we tried to, and then I'll get back to it, but we tried to go month to month, and it was going to be like $3,300 if we went month to month. But if we signed on for another year contract, which is what we kept doing because we wanted to get the lower rate, it was going to be like $2,400. And I was just like, I'm just done. Like, so And there was
you guys were just there for what, 5 years or so?
It was about 4 years. Yeah.
Okay, and so went from 1,400 up to 2,400 with a lease and 33 without?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just crazy. Now, I always envisioned...
I mean, it was incremental. It was incremental, but still, yeah.
Yeah, I always envisioned that you guys were living there to live kind of below your means and save up capital, save money, so that when opportunity...
That was the original idea.
Yeah, so that when you had an opportunity to do something else that you could. I mean, that was what we did.
Yeah.
We ended up, right after we got married, we had a studio apartment for a couple of years.
Okay.
And we had been saving money, socking it away. All of my, what do you call it, my peers, who were the same station in life as me, and the same, where they were in their career, they were spending 2 or 3 times the amount I was spending on rent or buying houses, and I was just like, no, man, I want to be close to work, close to downtown, close to the concert venues, because I was shooting shows and whatnot, but then saving a bunch of money. And my wife was doing the same kind of stuff. And so when we got married, we just continued with that. And so then when we saw opportunities like to go travel internationally and go check out some other places, we were able to do that.
Yeah.
And then when we found our cabin up here, which was a freaking bargain, it was a steal. I mean, we've been looking for years, and as soon as we saw this, we knew. Robert actually came up with us.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I was like, Robert, what do you think? He's like, you better buy this place. But so I guess what my point is that luck comes to the prepared, and the prepared are the ones who save, right? Who are saving up capital, living beneath their means to be able to do something like this. And I feel like that ties into even being able to think about moving international or getting into a position of working from home and being able to work from anywhere.
Well, and so that's what we did. Microsoft does. That's the one nice thing about Microsoft is that you get nice bonuses if you're a really good worker. And Jordan was. So we did have that. So then we had that really bad winter. And actually, you guys had a worse winter last year, so I can't complain. But but I was like, I just at some point, I think it just become winter. It was just right after Christmas. I said, I'm not doing this again. Like, I just can't do this again. I'm sick of the rain. I'm sick of feeling like I'm living in a mole hole. Like, I don't like feeling like the whole world is caving in on me all the time. The clouds drove me nuts. The constant drizzle drove me nuts. And also, you guys left, and a ton of our friends moved further away. And so getting together with people always felt like, we're packing a sack lunch, and we're trying to, coordinate all of these special things just so that, the kids can take a nap, or, just all of those kinds of special considerations. And I was just like, I'm not into this anymore. I want a different life, and I was starting to feel really kind of antsy. So what happened was we had talked about going to Anarcho, and it was going to be the first one. And thanks, you got those up. Thank you. Sorry for getting them to you late. And so we were like, you know what? Let's go to Anarcho. And let's take a few weeks. So we'll go to Anarcho, we'll rent a car, we'll just drive around Mexico, and we'll try to find our new home. Wouldn't that be fun? Hold on a second, I'm getting some sort of update. Okay. And then we were like, we can't rent a car and drive around Mexico with 2 small children who hate the car, by the way. It's like, they can stand it for an hour max, And we're like, how can we really get to know a place? And so then we were like, okay, let's scratch the Anarcho idea. As much as we'd love to, meet other people who are like-minded and meet other, peaceful parenting type families and all that, we were like, let's just figure out our life situation here, because we're pretty sure that we're done here, we're done in Seattle. And so we started researching. We just started researching. I don't even know what it was. Probably just Googled expat-friendly cities, and then it was, okay, well, we want to live on the West Coast. Okay, we want to live in an area where other people are homeschooling. There were just, these little considerations that we just started kind of narrowing it down. And that's when we came to Puerto Vallarta. And so we planned, and we kind of said it more like, let's just go and we'll just see if we like it. Like why not? That's all. It fits all of these, boxes that we're ticking here. Let's just go and see if we like it, and not put so much pressure on us to say, okay, that's where we're going. So, and Jordan still was not sold on the idea. He was just kind of like going along with my plan.
Wait, so it sounds to me like you guys didn't have it all figured out, and you were just making the jump and just going to figure it out as you go, and always have the fallback of coming back if you needed to.
Honestly, yeah, we did. Jordan's job was really secure at Microsoft. In fact, he'd just gotten a big promotion, raise, that whole thing. And so it didn't really feel like we would be losing much. So we came to Puerto Vallarta, and then about halfway through, Jordan flipped a switch. He got on his computer and he started trying to figure out how can I work from home, basically. How can I not have to go back to work and live in a place like this? And so
wait, was this just a trip to check it out?
This was a trip to check it out. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, this wasn't like full on moving yet. So what we did was I thought, well, he's I don't know if he's really serious. Let's just kind of test this. So I said, okay, let you figure out your shit, basically, and I'm just going to mentally go to that place. I'm just going to say that's what we're doing. We're doing this, and so and almost kind of poking at each other, like, okay, are we really going to do this? Are we really going to make this happen? And then we said, let's do it in 6 months. 6 months was a good time for us. 6 months was when our lease was up. 6 months was when right after we'd get that, Microsoft bonus. And it was and it was also a goal. Like, all of a sudden, now we're saying this is what we're going to do, and this is our time frame. And so I just started selling stuff. I started selling everything, getting rid of everything, giving away everything, telling people. So when I saw you, we were only about 2 months into this, 2.5 months into this kind of journey.
Into that mode of getting rid of everything, and you were 4 months away from leaving, which coincidentally is also when the bad weather starts coming back up here, right?
Yeah, yes, that was the other thing. The elections, we wanted to be out of here before the elections. We'd envisioned a totally different scenario, but we didn't care. Either way, we didn't care. We just wanted to be out before the elections. We wanted to be out before the winter started, the fall, winter started. It all was kind of like pointing to 6 months. And then we just kind of kept following through. We started, like I said, we started telling people, telling his folks, and just making all the preparations, and, just Googling everything. So, you were asking, basically how much do you need to be prepared to do something like that? And it was just, getting on some of these, and I don't think I was even on Facebook until last summer. So I got on Facebook, I started networking with people, found, the local groups, got connected with some homeschoolers, and just started, asking questions, trying to figure out what we needed to do. So to go to Mexico, for example, to live there, to start living there permanently, what you have to do is, of course, you need your passport, but you go and you apply for a residente temporal, a temporary residency. And then when you get to Mexico, then you complete that process. So the process beforehand, it does take a little bit of extra time and planning, but you could figure it out. I mean, it wasn't so horrible. It was a lot of trips downtown to the consulate, though. It was a kind of a headache, but
the bureaucratic.
But we did it.
Yeah. So, what would you say that the key takeaway from this is to set a goal,
yes,
and a good amount of time to actually get it accomplished, but then start making progress towards it. Start making it up in your own mind that yes, this is what we're doing, and you start telling people that you're doing it, and you start reinforcing it, and that helps build up the inertia to actually make the move.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, before I said, when we would talk about going to Costa Rica, it was just a dream. That's all it was. It was just a dream. And then when we had this concrete plan, it was like, it wasn't, sorry, now I'm like, oh yeah, see the beautiful sunrise.
Yeah, now this is the view out your window now?
Yeah, it is. Those are the Sierra Madres, and you can't really see them because the sun's right there, but they're just beautiful. And we've actually had a little bit of some storms recently, and it's just gorgeous. It really does remind me in some ways of being in the mountains in Issaquah or something like that, kind of looking out, and it is really beautiful. And this sunrise, we get to see this every single morning. And I've got to say, I have lived in Seattle for almost my entire life. I don't think I have ever seen a sunrise before. I don't think I ever have. And we see this every single morning when I'm making my coffee.
That's pretty awesome. Now, you were talking about when you were across the street from Microsoft that the rent was, upwards of $2,400 and $3,300. What is it in Puerto Vallarta for a place like this with this view in the morning?
Well, I will say that we're paying the gringo price, but this place we're paying, let me see here, it's somewhere around...
Is that a temporary thing, or is that going to be for as long as you live there? Will you be paying the gringo price?
We're actually thinking about moving, and I'll get to that in a second. But so a place like this, and let me explain to you where it is. We're in a pretty central area. We're not downtown, but we're in a nice neighborhood. We can walk to everything. In fact, we can walk to Costco. There's a brand new grocery store being built right behind Costco, and it's supposed to be like, the Mexican version of Whole Foods or something. There are tons of little tiendas all around, tons of restaurants within walking distance. Pretty much everything that you could want is all within walking distance. So there's that. We're in a gated, high security area. We have a parking spot. There is an adult pool and like a kids type wading pool, which is perfect for our littlest. We live up 3 flights of stairs, and we have this amazing view. And we have 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. Now keep in mind, when we were living in Bellevue, we had 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. We also have a washer dryer, which is not super common down here. And we have AC, all that kind of thing. So we're paying around between $700 and $800.
Holy crap! That's it. I'm moving. That's gringo price?
Yeah.
So once you get it figured out, it would be less than that?
So there was an apartment. Doesn't have quite the same view that we do, but there was an apartment down below. So my mom is actually thinking about moving down here. In fact, she is moving down here. She's in the process of selling all of her stuff. She just sold her house. And it's the same layout. It's an older building, but remodeled. Everything's all new. And she would have been paying about $400.
Holy shit. Robert, we're going to move Actual Anarchy HQ down south. What do you say, man? And you got all those amenities and everything all nearby, and your husband is still able to keep his American-sized income, and you're also doing your merchandising and all of that. So, I mean, you guys must be feeling pretty good right now, right?
Well, yes. However, all the money I'm making has gone right back into the business. And I can explain that in a little bit, but that's where all of the money that I've been making is going. So my husband actually lost his job. So we actually went back to the States in July, right when we got back. My husband found out he was working for a startup. So I should have explained that story too, about how he left Microsoft and started looking for something new. But he found something, and it was a startup. And they were kind of like, I think, because there were only like 2 or 3 employees at the time, they were willing to take a chance on him. And, he basically went to the interview and said, okay, look, here's the deal. Here's everything that I can do for you. And they weren't even hiring for that job anyway. But he said, here's what I'm capable of. Here's what I can do. And they kind of knew about him already. And he said, but here's the thing. I'm not living here. I'm moving. So if you want to work with me, it'll have to be just sort of this remote type deal. And they were totally cool with it. But the company didn't survive. It dissolved right when we got back from, a little after we got back from Minnesota. We went to go visit Jordan's family. And so we were kind of stuck. Oh, man, and you're going to love this, too. So we were like, you know what we should do? We should totally apply for unemployment. Right? We're like, why don't we just apply? Let's just see, okay? So he applied. He received 2 paychecks for like, let's see, it must have been like maybe between $600 and $700, whatever. And it must have been about $700. Because he got, I think, total, and I said, everything you get, let's just put into savings. Let's not touch it. Let's just live on, the other cash that we have, right? And so he got 2, and then he's going in, he's signing up for the, the 3rd week or whatever, and they said, that they can't process it because there was an error. Well, it turns out that you cannot apply for unemployment if you are outside the country. So just a note to self, don't ever try to apply for unemployment. We didn't know that. How would we have known, But what happened was, so they gave him, those 2 lump sums. They took out tax, okay? Then the next notice that he got from unemployment was, oh, you owe us that money back plus the tax plus we're fining you $218 for fraud, basically. So, wow. So it was a terrible experience. So just don't ever do that. So we learned that lesson. He is working like a few different contract type stuff, but that money hasn't really rolled in yet. So we're still kind of like, I don't know. But he does have, everything that he's working on right now is really promising. In fact, he might be headed back up to the States to check out some stuff too. But basically everything that he's applied for, he's done the same thing. His website says, this is where I live, this is what I'm doing, basically remote work only, so that's been pretty great because what happened was we started to think, oh geez, what are we going to do? Will we have to go back up to the States? How will we make this work? And then we started just kind of going down to the last resort type things, because immediately we're like, okay, no one spends any money, and then maybe we should, put some feelers out there to see if we have to move in with somebody, to kind of get us back on our feet, those kinds of things. And it didn't ever happen that way. But as we were having those conversations, it just turned out okay, our number one priority is to stay here. We don't want to go back to the States. We don't want to do anything, because we started thinking about it and we were like, all we would be doing is getting up enough money to go move again, you know, like we'd want to move right back here. And we don't want to have to go through this again. Like, we've already done the whole living in the States thing now, and now we're just done. So it really helped us kind of solidify, like, okay, yeah, we're doing the right thing. We're on the right track. We're doing what we want to do. This is how we want our family life to look like.
So despite all these challenges and hurdles that have occurred, you're realizing that if you were to have to come back, that you'd have to spend $2,400 a month on rent.
Yes.
And,
yep.
There's also advantages to staying down there, even if you earn a little bit less money, because what'd you say, you're spending $700 on this apartment. From what I understand, and this is not financial or tax advice, but from what I understand, you still have to report any income you earn in another country, but
that's right.
Up to a certain amount.
It's like $90,000.
Yeah, plus your living expenses doesn't get taxed. So you're still reporting it, but you're saving all that tax money.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you pay on $90,000 of income? Like $25,000, something like that?
Yeah, at least. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so your living expenses are like a third of what they would be.
Yeah.
And your tax liability, I don't want to say you actually owe it,
right.
is like, I mean, if you're not earning a ton of money, it's nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, those are huge advantages that offset a lot of the potentially lost income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even, you know, and those were things that we'd talked about, but that wasn't even like a major factor for us. It was just kind of like, we can't give this up. Like, we have it too good. We've tasted freedom, we've tasted paradise, and we're not willing to go back to what we were doing before. It's just not worth it.
Okay. Well, hey, I want to bring Robert in. So Greta's been talking for a fair amount. Have you any questions from your side?
Well, I got a couple of questions. First off, you mentioned that it's essentially paradise. Was Mexico on your radar before you went down there because you learned about it and found out, they're maybe more free than we are here and that sort of thing? Or has it mostly been, hey, you're down there, let's check it out, and then, oh, by the way, this is really nice and we do like this better than the United States?
Well, we had tossed out a few other ideas. So my youngest sister was living in Argentina for a while, so we thought, well, maybe Argentina. Then she moved to Colombia, and we thought, maybe Colombia. And then she moved back down to Argentina. We're like, that sounds like a good spot. But then we really started thinking about like convenience type things. Okay, if we needed to get back to the U.S., we don't want to drag our entire family through 20 hours of flights and layovers and those types of things. We do have young children, and that is a factor. Then we started thinking...
I was going to ask you about that. Was Puerto Vallarta a conscious choice to be like one hop away from where you were before? Because that's what we had in mind when we were looking at places. Like, we want to be one flight away, and if we were going to ever do the permanent traveler thing, we would fly to one place, be there for several months, then fly to another place and be there for a few months, and then fly to another, and do like this circle.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, okay. So I didn't mean to sidetrack you, but I feel like making that point there, because I think it's a good one. Like, you want to minimize the pain of the travel. Like when we went to Chile, it was a pain in the ass getting down there.
Yeah.
It was 2 days, it was 3 flights, it was a mess. And so I like this idea of a single hop, and you're there for a while. Yeah. And that way, if you want to go see family and friends, like from where you left from, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, and not just that, but Jordan's folks, they're from Minnesota, and they're not, they'll take real long road trips around the U.S., that sort of thing, but they're not as adventurous to. Actually, they don't fly at all, but they're not going to come down to Mexico. But we thought, hey, if there is a chance of them coming to visit us, we want to make it easy for them. We want to make it comfortable. And we also, safety was another factor. We want to live somewhere that's safe. We want to live somewhere where people aren't like, oh geez, that's not a good area, or that's not a good place. Oh, there we go. Yeah. I can't even see it. I have to blow this up. Okay, so what you're looking at here are, there was, and I've got the link here somewhere, so I can share that with you in the show notes. But we started looking at, there was this article that came out, and what they did was they compared Puerto Vallarta to Anaheim, California, because it's about the same population. They're both on the West Coast. They're both tourist destinations, so it had a lot of similarities. That's why they chose Anaheim. And, I mean, there are only, a few that, Puerto Vallarta's not doing so great. But let me see. I can't remember. No, they're all looking pretty good.
And just so you're aware, Robert is only on the phone, so he cannot see this graph.
Okay.
You may need to describe it to him.
Okay, so on the left-hand side, we have the population. So they're both around 325,000 people. Then there's homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, and auto theft. And, it's interesting. The first one is homicide. And you look at those two numbers, and you're like, oh, geez, gosh, Puerto Vallarta must have a lot of murders. And here's the absolute truth. The only kind of murders that anybody ever hears about here are it's all drug gang related stuff. And no one's going into a school or a grocery store and like spraying up the place with bullets. Like it's like they're taking out one individual, right? They're not oh, did I lose you here? You still there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
They're not it's not these crazed mass murderers who are out to get at just anybody. It's like, this guy, he did something wrong. We're just going to, walk into Walmart, kill him, and walk out. Like, that's pretty much what it is. So it's not random people. It's not, it's pretty intentional.
Okay, so your point essentially is that the murders might be a little bit higher, but all the other violent crimes are significantly lower in Puerto Vallarta than in Anaheim, California, the happiest place on earth.
Right.
And you mentioned you live in a gated area of Puerto Vallarta, so you don't have any feelings of not being safe there?
No. How we first came down here was that I flew down with the children. I came down here and I kind of got things set up before Jordan drove down. So he drove down with our vehicle just packed full of the rest of what we wanted to bring. So we got rid of everything else. But so I was here by myself with the kids, and I'll admit, like the first couple of weeks, I was, you just don't know. But I feel like I would have been like that any new city, any new neighborhood. Walking around at night with the kids. You don't know anybody. You don't know. You don't know how safe you feel. So I was pretty anxious for a while, but we've never experienced anything that would cause us to feel unsafe. We don't. We hear they're on these boards that we're on, these forums for locals and people who are down here visiting. We'll hear people like small theft, people getting their wallet stolen at night or something. But the situation is always something like, I stumbled out of the bar at 3 a.m., or I went to the ATM at 2 in the morning. It's always something like that where it's like, oh, I probably wouldn't do that anyway. So now I can't remember what I was going to say. Yeah, I don't feel unsafe here. And the area that we're in, it's not like, a huge gated area. It's, it's basically kind of like a condo complex type situation. So, And we do live in a nice area too. I think that helps as well. But then there are also things that I would probably, if I were living in Seattle and these things were to happen, I'd probably feel a lot more unsafe. Like there is a dog problem down here. There are just dogs roaming around all over the place. They're everywhere.
Yeah, we saw that in Chile too. Everywhere. Just random dogs everywhere. It
makes me feel really uncomfortable. I don't not like it at all. But people are friendly. Several months ago now, I'd injured my back, and because I wasn't able to work out like I normally would, I was just walking everywhere. So if we went out to go to dinner, I'd say, okay, I'll meet you guys at home. I'm just gonna walk home. And one night I was doing just that. I fell and I hurt myself badly. And it was one of those where, you fall and you're like, how bad is this, And so I just kind of stayed there for a second. And when I turned to, look up, there were like 3 or 4 people surrounding me, and they all had their hand out and they were all wanting to help me, like immediately. And honestly, the first thing that I thought of was, this would never happen in Seattle. People are not that nice. And we have these things, we call them doc in the box. So it's like a doctor that's right next to a pharmacy, right? It's like they've worked in cooperation with the pharmacy. I think they're paid by the pharmacy. And so I walked in there and I was like, hey, can you just take a look at my knee and make sure I've got all the gravel, all the gravel's out. I was like really paranoid that I had like stuff stuck in there. And he did, and he cleaned me up a little bit, told me some things to buy at the pharmacy to clean it up a little bit more, and sent me on my way. I offered to pay him. He didn't charge me. And there were some other things where I've been in there where he had to give me some injections for some other stuff, didn't charge me, like, just things like that.
Now, do you think that's like the cute girl discount? Because when my uncle was down there, some of the curves from the sidewalks aren't exactly like even down there.
None of them are, no.
Yeah, so he took a step and misjudged it, and so he put his foot into the ground like a lot harder than he intended to,
yes.
And ended up breaking bones in his foot.
Oh, geez. Oh.
And so he went to one of these dock-in-the-box types, and it was a cash deal, right?
Yeah.
It was a few $100. They put him in a cast, gave him some pain medication. He was able to rest and relax on the beach. But, you do that around here, and you're talking about a couple of grand.
At least,
and that's with insurance.
Yeah, and, and a whole bunch of rigmarole to go around with that. I keep thinking back to when I'd have to call to make a doctor's appointment for myself. I remember, this was so silly, but I had this, just a weird bump on my finger, and it was driving me crazy. And I was like, I just got to go figure out what it is, right? And you call up your insurance, right? And then they have to patch you through, you have to go through all of these different systems. You have to read off your number to like 10 different people, the number that's on your insurance card. And then it's like, well, you can't even go in today. It has to be like, next week, unless you want to see this other weirdo doctor you've never seen before. Then you can come in 3 days or something. And here, you can basically walk in anywhere, get care immediately, and you're out the door. You've got your meds or whatever else you need, and you're taken care of, and you pay cash right there, and it's over.
Yeah. So my uncle, I just told you about his foot. My aunt actually lives in Puerto Vallarta half the year.
Oh, nice. And okay.
She's gotten a bunch of dental work down there because it's so much cheaper as well. Yep. And I'm not sure exactly how she's where she's living. If it's like a timeshare type deal where she's got 180 days worth per year or whatever the story is.
Okay.
But I've been down there several times with her.
Oh, cool.
For like a week at a time. It's been years now. And Robert and I actually went down to Mazatlan with her.
Yeah.
Was that like 12 years ago or something like that?
More than that. I'd say that was,
That's
early
about
on.
what I went down.
Yeah, when we were young bucks.
Okay.
Now we're old men. But, But I mean, it was really kind of a cool thing. I know it wasn't inexpensive because it's gringo prices or whatever. But it sounds like if you figure it out, or if you engage with people like online, Facebook, find out the groups and do some of that prep work like you were talking about earlier, you can find a place to live that, like you were just telling us. I think there's a picture here of you on your rooftop. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. And those are some local voluntarians too. Yeah. You see that, like that thing that goes whoop, whoop? That's called a cupola, right? And we have one of those in our apartment. And it's beautiful. It's super dramatic. It allows for a lot of light to come into our place. It's always light. In fact, we still kind of do this thing where we walk into a room and we're trying to figure out which light to turn off, and we're like, nope, it's just bright.
So you guys are on the top floor then, and you have the cupola going up?
Yeah, that's like right up above us. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Now, are you anywhere near the section of town called PTL?
Yes, I am. Yep. That's like the next neighborhood over.
All right. Yeah, there's a little church there that has the floating Jesus, and I've been there a couple of times. And there's like a little square and little, tiendas and little flea market type things going on there. It's a pretty cool little area.
Man, that is definitely a locals neighborhood. You won't find a lot of expats living in that neighborhood, and you could speculate on why, but it's a great area. So we go over there. I haven't been over there for a while, but we've done some kind of shopping there. Everything's really, really reasonably priced. What's really cool is that square that you were talking about, they always have something going on. Like every single night, they have something going on. Like the school marching band is practicing, and then they have like a big jumpy house, and they have, other people are selling things. There's vendors, and I remember the first time that it was actually a local who, because I took the kids there and they were on this jumpy thing, and it was this really, really old guy who it's like I don't know what he's doing there, but he was the person who was you'd pay him, and then he'd write down what looked like just an arbitrary number on a piece of paper and hand it to you. And that was supposed to be like when you were supposed to come back to get your kids or whatever. But I just kind of stuck around and started chatting with somebody next to me, and I was like, this is really cool. How often do they do this? And he's like, oh, well, every night. And I was like, what do you mean every night? They put this together every single night? And he's like, well, yeah. And then he pointed to this old guy, and he's like, what else is he going to do? What's he supposed to do? It's like, I never thought about it that way. Everybody, and, okay, so here's another great point. Everybody has a purpose here. Like, everybody's doing something. One of the things that really shocked me when I went to go back and visit Seattle was the homelessness. It was everywhere. It felt like the homelessness was like constantly in your face, and it felt so weird because Seattle is so pristine. They have all these newer buildings up. Everything just feels so clean, and it's just people strung out on drugs and lots of homeless people, and that was really, really hard to see. And one of the things that I've been thinking about living here is that there is homelessness here, but it looks very different. And this is where I think you guys would appreciate that I started kind of putting together. It really, truly is the fault of the government for the position that those people in, that I was describing in Seattle, that they're in. So here, you can find a shack. You can just live there, you know. Another thing is that because family is so important to this culture, people aren't just left out on the street. People take in their family. It's pretty rare to, you know, hear about somebody who's, you know, they've gone rogue or something, and their family doesn't accept them. You know, everybody takes care of each other, and you don't see the opioid crisis that you have up there in the Pacific Northwest. It's just nothing. There's nothing like that here. But people, you do see lots of street vendors. You see lots of people selling things on the beaches. You see lots of people either entertaining or selling things at stoplights, or performing a service like trying to wash your windshield or those kinds of things. So, and they don't have the government interference, you know, coming and, you know, shaking them down, or, you know, like that the hot dog vendor guy. You know, I have not seen anything like that. People can make a living. They can support themselves with their own skills, talents, or you know, whatever it is that they their services or whatever they have to offer.
Okay. And can I jump in on your
Yeah. Sorry, I ramble.
No, it's quite all right. So the place you're living in, the non-gringo price is roughly $400 a month. That's 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a nice view, gated community. So what is the average Puerto Vallarta resident who is born and raised there? What are they paying for something that's a little bit more modest? You know, not like some shack like you were talking about, but
yeah.
You know, if you were to live like a local,
yeah,
what are we talking about rent-wise and all that?
Yeah, if you're really to live like a local, I'd say, and I will say too that the people who live in our you know, little community here, they are, you know, young professionals, that sort of thing. But you know, if you're like a housekeeper, or you work in the service industry, that sort of thing, you're probably looking at paying probably $50 to maybe $150, $200 max, probably. I'd say $200 max for the average worker here.
Yeah, just like a modest place to live.
Yeah.
And then what would, like, utilities and that sort of thing?
Okay, well, that's a whole different story. So water and gas, that's usually included in the price of rent. However, for electricity, it's really expensive. So I think our last bill, it's really embarrassing. And, you know, we're just like, we're letting the air conditioning go because it's uncomfortable. But I think we paid for 2 months, I think it was about $500. But then we don't use the air conditioning the rest of the year. We don't use it, you know, for at least 6 months out of the year.
Okay.
But you don't really have seasons there, do you? Is it
yeah.
really, you do?
Yeah. Yeah, so June through October, it's really muggy. That's when they call it the rainy season. It's really muggy, really humid, and it's just hot. Like you'll see on the, you know, the temperature thing. It's like, you know, well, it's only 87 degrees, but it feels like 113. You know, that kind of thing. So it does get very hot here, and there are days where it's like, oh, geez, it sounds like a lot of work to go outside. And actually, that has influenced part of our plan too. So one of the things, and we don't have a concrete plan right now, but one of the things that we're thinking about is because we've figured out, okay, yeah, we can live this lifestyle of, you know, just not having a specific location. We like the idea of slow travel. And we really want to visit a lot more of Mexico. So we're thinking we'll go up to San Miguel de Allende for a while. We'll go to Guadalajara for a while, maybe visit Mexico City, and maybe check out a few other places, maybe to, you know, partially to escape the heat. And also things usually in September. September is pretty dead here. Like right now, lots of businesses are closed or they're just starting to reopen again.
Why is that?
So, just because so Puerto Vallarta it's a tourist town, and so lots of when there aren't tourists, then things kind of dry up. So lots of restaurants will close, or they'll have limited hours over the summer. But it's interesting. Last year, when like around January, when things were because that's really when things get hopping. That's when it's probably at its busiest time, is January. And people were asking around, and they were asking how they call it low season is what we're in right now. They were asking how low season was, and a lot of the business owners were saying that they didn't really experience a low season. That a lot of the expats like ourselves just kind of stay around. So it might be shifting. I think people are moving here, and they're like, well, I'm here, I might as well check it out, and okay, it's livable. I can make it throughout the whole year, and even the summer months where everybody's complaining, it's still livable. It's still doable.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let Robert jump in a second
Sure.
here, but I wanted to ask you about a place that's just south of town, probably 20 minutes to half an hour out of town, and I have a picture of it up.
Oh yeah.
And it's a river with a bunch of rocks that it flows through, and I forget what it's called, like Chico.
I thought it was like
Village or something like that.
Eden's Village or something.
Maybe something like that, but there's like a giant palapa with on the side of a cliff that overlooks this little ravine with the river coming through.
Okay, I've never been there.
Okay, we should check it out. Yeah, definitely check it out. It's a really cool spot. This is a picture
photo
a friend of mine took of. I'm actually in the middle of that, and I was doing one of my VR photos, like a 360 photo, and that kid jumped over me and down like 30 feet over these rocks into like a pool in the river.
Oh, wow.
And it's something I definitely would never do.
No.
But but I just wanted to bring it up because there's this thing right here, which you had sent me, which is a video of your kids playing in the river, and I wanted to see if this was maybe related to that, like if this is where you went.
Woo! There's Jordan. So there are a lot of rivers that come out of the mountains, and I have an idea about where the location that yours is, but this one is actually, it's funny, it's so close to us. I mean, we live so close to the mountains. So, yeah, this is just one of those rivers, and we've only gone to this specific spot like twice, and you actually have to drive through the river to get to this spot. So it can't be, after it's been raining a whole bunch. But yeah, no, I'll have to go check out this other place that you're talking about because we haven't been to a place where you jump off any cliffs or anything.
Yeah, not that I recommend it. So Robert, why don't you jump in? I know you had some questions there.
Yeah, so you've been painting a really nice picture of this place, but I'm sure it's not a perfect place. I know you mentioned the dogs, but I was wondering if there was like your main negative of the place.
Well, and I'm probably saying this just right now because we're in it, but it's hot in the summer. It's uncomfortable. But like I said, there are ways to get around that. Let me think. Some of the negatives. Okay, here's one.
Or how about something you wish you had done better prepared for, or you would recommend to somebody if they were thinking of moving to the same place? How are you acclimating to the place? Is your Spanish pretty good? Is it that important to learn? Or?
Okay, so that is probably something that I should have done. I should have learned that that's on top of our roof. We go up there, we smoke. I should have learned Spanish. Jordan knew it. He took it in high school and college. And, the kids and I, we just did kind of superficial stuff. We listened to Spanish radio stations before we left. And I don't know, I think I bought like a couple of books in Spanish. We didn't really do anything to prepare, just more familiarize ourselves with it.
That hurt you think?
A lot of people speak English here, and we have apps on our phones.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I rely on. And also, good old-fashioned pointing, gesturing, that kind of thing. And sometimes, it's a struggle. But it doesn't feel like such a huge negative. I think, and maybe I'll experience this, the longer we're here, but it's definitely something that I need to concentrate on this next year. But it has probably prohibited me from making friends with more locals. We don't really have friends who are locals. Like, we are around people who are locals a lot, but we're not inviting a ton of people over for parties, that kind of thing. And so I think that is definitely something that is a negative and can definitely be improved. It's interesting. There are people here who are Mexican nationals who grew up in the States and who've actually moved here since. So I think that's really interesting too. You think about a lot of families, leaving Mexico to come up to the States for this dream that they have. And it is interesting that people are moving back,
Mm-hmm.
So another negative along those lines is because, again, this is a tourist spot, people leave. People that you think are going to be here for a long time, they leave, and that's really sad. I've made a lot of friends. In fact, if we went back to that picture of all of us standing on the rooftop, a lot of those people are gone now. And that's really sad. So, in fact, either they're all gone now or they're in the process of leaving. Yeah, it's really sad.
What do you think is the impetus for that? Is it what you were just talking about, or primarily the heat, or because it's like kind of down season and so there's not a whole lot going on?
Okay, so there are a few situations going on. Here's the biggest. This is what I've noticed. So when you come down and you just have your tourist visa, okay, that's that little thing that you get when you come in. You can only stay for about 6 months, right? And then you have to leave for 1 day, and then you can come right back, and it starts all over, right? But it's always a countdown for 6 months. And the reason why we did the prep work for the temporary resident card, right, was so that we wouldn't have to do that, all right? So all we have to do now is renew it. But we don't have to go back to the States to do that. And so some of the situations for some people is that they get tired of that, or it becomes too cost prohibitive. If you have a family of 4 or 5, to always make sure that you're leaving, every 6 months or so. So I think that's a reason why people leave. And then, I'm looking at this picture, and I see some people who they wanted to move to Guadalajara because it's more of like a young person's type town. And here you get like a lot of older people, or more families are moving to town. But it's like there's just more nightlife. There's a lot of more youthfulness to a place like Guadalajara. So that's the reason why. And then, maybe they're just here, they're checking it out, they fall in love with it, and they say, I don't know, maybe there's something else out there. So they're kind of people who probably won't ever settle down, who are probably always going to be, searching for something. So I think those are probably the 3 main reasons that people take off.
Okay, and it sounds like you guys are going to sort of follow suit as well. Because you wanted to travel around a bit more, right? Is that
yeah, but we definitely consider Puerto Vallarta our home base. This is our home base. We don't want to move. We don't have our eye on anything else right now, and we want to invest in this community here. We want to stay here. I mean, and again, with kids, it's like, they develop friendships. We don't want to rip them away from their friends just because, mom and dad think, well, maybe this city is better, or maybe it has more what we want, or something like that. I mean, the city for us is just, it's pretty close to perfect.
So are you saying that you would keep your current apartment and then still go check out other places for a few months at a time or a few weeks at a time?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what we do.
Oh, okay. All right.
But we're actually thinking about moving. So we love everything about our apartment, but like I said when I was kind of describing it, we're on the 3rd floor. I wake up in the middle of the night and like freak out thinking about what if my son fell off the side.
You sound like my wife.
Those kinds of things. So, and those are, it might never happen, but those are considerations. It just takes one time of them falling off, But also, one of the things that we do miss about Seattle, especially the area that we were living in, is that we could bike everywhere. You could really bike. And some of my most fond memories with my son before we left was I would take nightly bike rides with him. We'd go on really long bike rides. He'd get really sleepy. Sometimes he'd fall asleep. There was one time where I thought I actually broke his neck because he was full, just out. So I really miss that. And here, everything's like cobblestone, and there is a big biking community here. But I mean, it's not like my kids can't bike in it. I can, and it's uncomfortable. But I don't feel comfortable with my kids biking around here. So we are thinking about moving to an area that is more of like another gated guarded type community. And that was something that at first, when we were first dreaming about moving down here or talking about it, I wanted that. And then I was like, no way, I want to live in, an area where, it's mostly local, that kind of thing. And I really want to experience the culture. And I think we've done that, and I think we can still do that. But I want them to I want to be able to open up the door and let them loose. I want them to be able to play and not have to worry about it. And here, even though we have much more space in our apartment than we did when we were living in Seattle, I want more space. I really want my kids to be able to run around and just kind of keep their bodies in motion. And I absolutely recognize, because every time we go downstairs to go do anything, it's like we got to bring everything. We got to, it's like packing up every single time. And I don't know. I'm ready for something a little bit different.
Okay. And I imagine you've investigated this a little bit. So what does it cost to live in a place like that where there is a gated community, but there's some green space and some areas for the kids to run around? Where does that run?
Well, like I said, we're paying gringo price here, but through the experience of almost renting the apartment down here, that $400 one, now I have some friends who, what are they called? They're called agents or whatever. And so I'm able to get a more realistic price. So we'd actually be paying about the same for like a 2-level type house type situation. And when I say house, it's much different than a house like you would think about up in the States. Almost everything is connected. So it's more of like a townhouse type situation. It's not like there's no separation between, like the walls are basically connected.
Okay, but there'd still be like an outdoor space for the kids to run and play and that kind of a thing.
So other negatives, the playgrounds. The playgrounds here it's all metal, it's all rusted. Like you're just praying that your kids don't get tetanus every time they go down the slide. It's like really bad, and I'm not exaggerating at all. It's terrible. So if you go to one of these communities, they'll have, one of the nice, Costco type, playground type things. like they got the slide and the nice swings and, you know, plastic and wood and that sort of thing. So what was I saying? So that's something else that we'd be gaining too. We'd be gaining a playground. You know, they have pools, more community spaces, that kind of thing.
Okay, and is this more expat, and is this where your mom is going to be headed down to be in a neighborhood like that, and you guys will also be in one, like similar?
So I don't know about my mom. I have no idea what her plan is. Mainly because I haven't told her that this other apartment she's not getting anymore. So that's probably
breaking news, Mom! That apartment you thought you were moving into, not happening.
That's a conversation I'm going to have tomorrow morning.
Just send her this link and say, okay, Mom, start playing at an hour and 20 minutes in.
So I think we'll be able to find something for my mom. I am not concerned about that. One of the benefits about her living so close would have been we were thinking about moving Jordan's office, which is what we're currently in. It also acts as the spare bedroom, or, you know, when we're playing, you know, bed rotation throughout the night, you know, this is where somebody ends up. But I don't know. I'm not quite sure what she's going to do, and I'm not quite sure what the office situation is going to be for Jordan. But you know, like I said, it's so inexpensive that it's like, okay, if he needs to, you know, rent an office space, you know, down the street or something, it's not like it would be breaking the bank to be able to do something like that. If it doesn't work out, then, you know, we could stop doing it. So I can't remember what the initial question was. Sorry.
Oh, it was about the community that would give you more space for the kids, and how, you know, how much that would cost. And I'm also curious, and this is probably the biggest question for me, because I do need to be able to work remotely and also manage the show and the sites and all that stuff, is what's the internet story? Because, I mean, you're running a video right now, so it must be fairly decent, right? What does it cost, and how fast can you get speeds down there?
So we have a guy, and I honestly, I am not the technical person. I'll have to email you later and give you a little bit more information, but it's not expensive. It's like, geez, I don't even know. I don't know, like maybe $15 a month or something. It's not expensive. That even sounds like really high to me. But we had a guy come in and kind of set us up with really fast internet. And it also depends by neighborhood, too. It depends on what neighborhood you're in. And we have almost always had pretty consistent internet here. But there was, like, for a week, a couple of weeks ago, we had terrible connection. We kept getting disconnected, and it was because, and I'm not the technical person here, I'm so sorry, somebody had split the cable, so Jordan just went down and, like, reconnected it or something, and it's been fine ever since.
Self-service, right?
Yeah.
So, Robert, you convinced you want to go down there? Super cheap, good weather, good culture, fast internet.
One more thing. The food. Did you know that outside of Mexico City, Puerto Vallarta has the best food in all of Mexico?
Mm.
And new restaurants opening all the time.
So Daniel, you're sold on this business, this swan song that she's trying to sell us on? I think she's just trying to get more voluntarians down to Puerto Vallarta.
Hey, you know what? That's absolutely true. I am. I absolutely am. I want more voluntarists down here. We could use a wider community down here. Why not?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So tell me a little bit. I know we haven't talked at all. I know you're a homeschooler, and I'm just curious about what kind of curriculum you got your kids doing. You got some Ron Paul. You got some Liberty Classroom. What are you doing?
So, no. So my kids are 7 and 2, and we're still in the natural, child-led. We call ourselves unschoolers only because people have heard of that term, but our kids have never been to school, so they're not anything. They're just don't go to school. So curriculum, no, we don't do any kind of curriculum. We haven't done any kind of courses, and I'm not opposed to them. They're just not high on our priority list here. And also, I have two very, very strong-willed children, and any time that I actually have sat down with them and, you know, tried to, my daughter, and, you know, we've tried to go through the whole phonics thing, you know, she's just, she resists. And, you know, I read like some, you know, the John Taylor Gatto, John Holt, Alfie Cohen type, you know, stuff. And we know that kids learn best when they're relaxed and comfortable, they're not stressed out, and when they're not forced. And so we really try to just let it come as naturally as possible. And I do kind of seeing it just go this way. I see that, you know, our children are bright. My daughter is extremely bright, and she's inquisitive, and, you know, she's always asking lots of questions, and she figures things out quickly too. And so I'm just not concerned. I'm not concerned about it. We just have zero plans to send them to school. We have zero plans to go through the curriculum, though I got to say, every time I see, you know, Tom Woods plug his Ron Paul curriculum, I'm like, yes, that would be so awesome. But the truth is that they're, you know, like how I'm relearning history, for example. I'm listening to podcasts. You know, I'm listening to audiobooks, that sort of thing. I'm not going to someone with some extra special knowledge and you know, saying, you know, teach me, you know.
Well, is there any, do you know, or I guess it hasn't happened yet, or if it will happen, but is there any kind of pressure from the state to kind of register your children and, you know, show them that they're getting educated like there would be here in the States?
Yeah, no, there's nothing like that down here. There's nothing like that.
Did you have to deal with any of that while you were still up in Seattle?
No. So in Washington State, the requirements are at the age of 8. Let me see here. I think I might have this in my notes even.
Well, while you're looking that up, whatever the answer is, that is my wife and I's internal countdown. For as soon as that is like a requirement, we're ready to be somewhere else.
Yeah, and that was definitely a consideration for us too. I did not want to register my kids with the state. I do not want to have them on some list that where somebody has to check in with us, or where we have to report to someone about what my kids are learning. That's nobody's business. Like, and also, you know, gosh, you know, you hear all of these crazy stories about CPS being involved and kids being taken away for, you know, these, you know, minor infractions, or not even, you know, kids playing at the park by themselves. And I do consider myself like a free-range parent. Did you ever read that book, Lenore Skenazy? Is that Skenaski, something like that?
I've heard like horror stories of free-range parents having their kids taken away because they were out playing at a local neighborhood park unsupervised. Yeah, or even walking to school by themselves, that sort of thing. And, you know, I kind of feel like, you know, anything where my kids are not registered, they're not here's the thing. This is the truth. And I know people don't like to hear this, but once you hand your kids over to the state, that's what you've done. You've handed them over. And they can speak into your life. They can speak into your child's life. Why would you do that? Why would you give the state and these strangers total control and access to your children and their precious minds? And for me and my family, I have major conscience issues with that. I cannot hand over my kids. I cannot have somebody else teaching them,
blatant lies.
Propaganda. Yes, lies and these ideologies that I just can't get behind. You know, and what we have right now, and we haven't even talked about this, but we do have a nanny. And she's a lovely person. She's actually originally from the States, but she's bilingual. She's lived here for like 7 years, and she is a total hippie. And I got along with her, you know, like over Messenger, that kind of thing. You know, one of the things that she said was, because we talked about kind of doing this thing where, you know, she could kind of not mentor. I don't even know what kind of verbiage we used, but it was like, you know, you can teach my kids, you know, kind of a thing if it comes up. And so I basically said, if it comes up, but you know, don't like hammer her with information. I don't want my kids feeling like they're outside of school but still in that schooling mindset. Like, as things come up, yeah, teach her about those things, but you know, we're not going to sit down with textbooks or anything like that. And she totally got it. So she is with us just for 5 hours, twice, occasionally 3 times a week, and actually it's lended itself to Jordan and I actually having date nights for the first time ever.
Well, what's that? I haven't had one of those in 4.5 years.
I didn't either. We never did. I mean, we just truly didn't, and it is a total game changer to have even the smallest amount of help. And she's, you know, very invested in our kids, and it's worked out really, really well. But going back to the school stuff, like I mean, I know people who've had like run-ins with the state, and I'll tell you one. I think it happened in, I think it was like Auburn or Puyallup area. This was several years ago. She, I'm sorry, it was a little boy, her son, probably close to my daughter's age now. He was in the school cafeteria talking to his friends, and he was talking about something that he saw or something, and he said something about shooting the alien, okay? And he immediately got whisked away by the cafeteria monitor, whatever, brought up to the principal's office, and for the entire rest of the day, he was interrogated. It was everything from what kind of guns do your parents own, where are they stored, you know, just a whole line of questioning. And the mom had no idea that her child was held in the principal's office until she went to go pick him up. So, I mean, you think about what that does to the kid too. You know, and of course, and this was, you know, years ago, but you know, she's writing this all on Facebook, and everyone's like, you know, rip your kid out of school. Why would you even stand for that? You know, and it was like, well, but I need to. Like, I've got stuff to do during the day. You know, it's like,
yeah, school is like a big babysitter for a lot of people.
It's daycare, yeah. It's absolutely daycare.
Yeah, and to jump on some of the stuff you were saying before, like the CPS getting involved in things that when we were growing up would be totally normal.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, we were running around neighborhood. I mean, Robert lived probably, a quarter of a mile from me, and I would walk down there at 6 or 7 years old, down to his place every day.
That's how we first met.
Yeah,
that's how we first met. I was just out playing in my yard, and here come you, 5, 6, 7 years old at the most, just walking down the street.
Yeah, walking to the bus, because the bus didn't even come up the hill, right? So I had to walk a quarter mile to get to the bus, and then that's how we started hanging out. We were a free-range neighborhood, going to the frog pond, catching frogs and all this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Tadpoles and everything, inspecting stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that would get you in trouble with the authorities these days. It's not like the CPS is actually good for kids. I mean, you've seen all this abuse with foster parents and all the rest of it, and it really amazes me that foster parents can be so terrible and be approved by this arm of the state, but then adopting a kid is so difficult.
Yeah.
You know, like, so if you actually want a kid, it's like impossibly hard.
Yeah.
But if you just want like some extra cash to I mean, that seems to be what the fostering thing is about.
But,
like, if you foster a kid, you get like $500, and so that's what they do. And they treat them like shit.
It's not just that, but the state actually gets money too. So I think it was under Bill Clinton. I think he introduced a program where for every child that is kept out of their home of origin, I don't even know how much it was. The state got like an extra $6,000 or something, and so I think that's when they started realizing, like, okay, the more kids that we remove, from their homes, the more money we make. So it's a scam. It's a total scam. And actually, there's a guy, I think his name is Carlos Morales, and he wrote a book called like Kidnapped by the State or something like that, because he actually worked for CPS. So he has sort of an insider. I'll get this to you because I just can't remember. You can put that in your show notes. But yeah, he has firsthand experience with this. And actually, another place that we were considering, just because we have family there, is to live, like part-time. If we did this kind of traveling lifestyle, I don't know. We talked about, Arizona, and Arizona is like the worst. They're the worst for CPS. You get your kid taken away, you'll never get that kid back. I mean, it is terrible in that state. And you go online and you'll see it's like the first state that shows up for abuse type situations. It's really bad there.
Yeah, this is surprising to me. And talk about perverse incentives. If they're going to get $6,000 in federal money for every kid that they rip away from their biological parents,
and it might not be 6,000. So sorry, I'm sorry if I got the numbers wrong, but I'll check it out and I'll get the right information to you.
Okay, and like I said, it's the first I've heard of it, so I'll believe you, but verify, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, it sounds just fucking ridiculous. And, but anyway, let's move on to some happier topics.
Okay.
And then we can start to wind it down because I know you've already been on for almost 2 hours here, so I don't want to totally burn you out here. But let's talk about your show that's coming up. You've already recorded one episode, and it's related to your merchandising. And I've got a link to your merchandise, your Halloween stuff. I'm going to pull it up here. Can you see this?
Yeah, and it's funny. Somehow somebody else got into my brand, so there's at least one shirt in that collection that is not mine at all.
Is it that green one there that's cheaper?
No. I won't say which one it is.
Well, talk about this a bit. So you're publishing this on Amazon. Mm-hmm. So do you have like a system that you're using, or are you just kind of learning this as you go? Are you teaching other people how to do this? What's your story here? And if it's successful, are you going to continue growing this and all that?
Okay, well, let me back up because the last time we talked, you and I were talking about FBA. Do you remember that?
Yep. Okay.
So at this point, I was already accepted into this program, but I am not a designer. Jordan's the designer in the family, and I couldn't figure out how to get this going. I had a few designs up from actually some old anti-circumcision rallies that we did.
All right, before you go too much further, the other guy on the phone here is a designer, and so this might, if you could tailor this to if he can do this kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Robert, what kind of designing do you do right now?
Right now I'm designing some T-shirts, actually.
Oh, okay. There you go. And then what kind of POD sites do you have them up on?
So I'm looking at Redbubble.
Oh, Redbubble. Okay. Okay. Is it just Redbubble or anything else you have going on?
Depending on the design, because I'm looking to establish a certain brand that's going to be freedom-based type stuff that'll be associated with the podcast and go up on this Redbubble brand. And then there's a site called T-Fury that does more of like video game and pop culture type nerd stuff. So I might do some designs on that. But starting off just the Redbubble for now.
Okay. So the first thing that I would tell you to do is go to merch.amazon.com and apply. Fill out all the information, and they call it requesting an invitation. So request your invitation, and then you'll have to wait. But while you're waiting, design as much as you possibly can and research. Figure out, and I wouldn't just do the Liberty niche. I would expand it as far as you can, because, and that was my mistake when I went into this. I was like, oh, I want to put T-shirts out there that, things I'm passionate about. Well, it doesn't always sell, and sometimes it sells really well, but it's a crowded market. So I would say just start researching niches that you can go into and creating designs. So in addition to the two that you mentioned, and I'll forward on to a list of other POD sites that you can get up on, but I would honestly just get your stuff up on as much as you can, or start a Shopify account, have your own store and drive your own traffic to that store. But Merch by Amazon, it's been called a numbers game. So, when you start off, they start you at a lower tier. You have like 10 that you can sell, and then you have to sell 10 to be able to get up to the next tier. And it's kind of been put to us like, like a leveling up, like a video game, and so, like, for me right now, I'm at tier 2,000, and I'm really close to being tiered up to 4,000. So I have all of my slots, my available slots, completely maxed out. In fact, I had to take down a bunch today, some old designs to put up new stuff. So for you, that's what I would do. I would get as many designs going as possible. I would put them up on some websites, or start your own through Shopify. Even Etsy, there's a really cool integration that everyone's excited about right now. It's the Printful to Etsy integration. So basically you have your Etsy storefront, but you don't have to ship anything out. You just have Printful sending everything. So it's integrated. You don't really have to deal with, you don't have to deal with the shipping at all. It's all just taken care of for you. And I love that idea because, again, that's something where you can work anywhere. You don't have to be in the States to do that.
Okay. So what about advertising? Are you advertising at all, or are you just relying on the sites themselves to push your product?
So Amazon, you get plenty of organic traffic through Amazon. The whole reason that this program, the Merch by Amazon program, is so popular is because you get Amazon's traffic. Like, think about anything that you go to purchase. Most people, they just go to Amazon first and see if they have it. Right. And, I'm thinking back to when I was pregnant with my son, and I wanted to do an announcement type T-shirt. This was years ago, for my in-laws. I wanted them to read my daughter's shirt and be excited that they were going to, that it was I wanted to have her wear I'm going to be a big sister type shirt, And there was only one. This was before Merch by Amazon. There was only one T-shirt, just one T-shirt. And I bought it. I didn't like the design, but I bought it because it was through Amazon. It was easy. They already had my information, and 2-day shipping. And these do take sometimes a little bit longer. But so advertising, I do some through Amazon Marketing Services, which is their ad program. So just advertising also on Amazon. And then I've done Facebook ads and I've taken actually a lot of courses on doing Facebook ads, but for T-shirts, for this, they just never panned out. It was never worth it. I wasted a ton of money doing Facebook ads. And I'm trying to think, what else have I tried? I pin things to Pinterest. I post things on Twitter.
Have like an Instagram that you post your designs on?
Yeah, I've got a few Instagram accounts. Yeah. Instagram, I think all that kind of stuff helps, but nothing beats Amazon.
Just the organic Amazon traffic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. And one of the things that I liked about Redbubble is that you can have a design, say, of a really cool image that you like and you put up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could put that image on anything.
Right.
Like sheets or pillowcases or mugs or shirts. You can do that on Amazon too?
No. So Merch by Amazon, it started in September of 2015, and they are still working out the kinks. There have been a lot of issues, but the rumor is that hoodies will be next to available to tiered sellers. So that's what I'm excited for. I'm hoping that happens within the next couple of months here.
So Greta, before you go too much further, so Merch by Amazon is Amazon doing the production?
Yeah,
so you're
that's right.
Loading the design and then they're producing it and shipping it like Prime 2-day or whatever, so it maybe takes an extra day.
Mm-hmm.
But you're suggesting to Robert to start out on Shopify or Etsy or Redbubble or Gearbubble or any of those other ones to build up a base to get approved for the Amazon one?
No, I don't think that it. I don't know. I don't know if it would help you get approved. I don't think it could hurt. But I would say do that just to start generating income from the designs that you already have, or you're already working on before you get approved, because you don't know how long it's going to take. I've heard of people saying, it only took 2 weeks. Other people, so Jordan, he applied for one. And remember, he's the designer. He applied for one, and it was almost a year, and he just got approved at the beginning of this month.
Oh wow!
So that's why Sorry, I should have mentioned that before, but you just don't know how long it's going to take to get approved.
Now, don't these other sites support Amazon? Like you could list the item on Amazon and then fulfill it from Redbubble, or is that not a thing?
Like doing drop shipping?
Yeah, like you can create a listing on Amazon and sell it, and then
the
order would
account.
And then the order would go to Redbubble, and they would print the item and ship it.
I don't know about Redbubble. I'm sure that that's possible. I know that there are other Amazon integration sites. But the thing about Amazon, remember, is that they're really brand heavy. They really want to instill. They want the customer to feel safe, when they're buying their products. So if you have a brand, you need to register it. So I think you actually need to get that brand trademarked first before you just start your own brand on Amazon. I think that's how it works. Because I looked into the Printful to Amazon integration, and I remember thinking this is going to be a whole nother headache. I'll just wait. I'll wait on that. But I do have somebody who's working on the Etsy Printful integration for me right now.
So what are you selling? How are you doing? Are you designing things? Is your husband designing things? And what exactly are you selling on your site?
He has designed some, but honestly, the ones that I do, the T-shirts that I make, they are mainly text-based. They are very simple. There's nothing super special about them. It's just some big text. And those actually sell the best. But I have some VAs, some virtual assistants, and they design for me. So I research the niches. I come up with a whole plan. I have been, since I was tiered up from 1,000 to 2,000, I knew that I needed to get 1,000 more extra designs. So I started doing a lot more scaling. So it's like, can't think of, like if you imagine something like keep calm and, and then insert whatever words after that, like those kinds of, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you do 1,000 of those.
Do 1,000 of those. Yeah, exactly. So that's where I've taken my business. So I actually already have my next almost 2,000 loaded up in drafts right now. So I'm just waiting to be tiered up, and then I'll have all of those ready to go. I almost killed myself because the other thing is they cap you. For each tier, you can only upload X amount each day. So for tier 10 for tier 100 or 500, I think it's like 10. For tier 1,000, you can only do 20 a day. And then for tier 2,000, it's 40 a day. And 40 a day just did me in. It was no good for me. It was no good for my family. I really stressed myself out. I missed 3 days, and to anybody else, it's no big deal. But it was like a goal of mine to make sure that I got, my maximum out. So it was really disappointing when I didn't make it. So I'm just not going to do that again. So.
You mentioned that any profit you're making is put right back into the business. I'm curious if this is all on-demand service. What's your overhead costs?
Well, okay, so I have designers. I pay for babysitting. I pay for right now. I'm paying for someone to upload all of my products, so I don't have to do it.
No, wait a minute. What kind of designer situation? Are you paying like a per design? Are you paying an hourly? What are you doing?
So it's hourly. So I use this awesome site. It's called freeup.com, and it's with 3 E's. So freeup.com, started by this guy Nathan Hirsch, and it's great. I have hired the designers. I have like 3 or 4 designers that I work with. Probably 3 main ones, and I guess 4 if I had another one. But they, I just give them projects to do. I tell them I'm very, very explicit about exactly what I want them to do. And if I have an idea but I don't really know how to go about it, I, let them know, and then they kind of fill in the blanks. And sometimes they're just not a hit, and other times I'm in love with them. Sometimes I'm in love with them, but I know that they're not going to sell very well. So I'm sorry, what was the question?
I was just curious. Yeah, talk about your like. I was curious how you. So it's on you have a relationship with these designers, and they know what they're making, and you're describing each shirt and each design for them, and
yeah. Okay. So and then I do a lot of I make a lot of lists. So I have a Google spreadsheet or whatever, and I just fill that out. So I'll come up with like a niche list, like hobbies or occupations or something like that, and then I'll have every single variable in there, right? And so then I'll say, I want a T-shirt that says, keep calm and then here's the variable. So sometimes, do you use Photoshop?
Photoshop, yes.
Okay, so are you familiar with data sets? I'm not. No. That's why I'm asking.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No.
So there's a program, and maybe you can research it a little bit more. But basically what it does is it takes all of the information from the spreadsheet and it just bam, 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 just puts it all through.
So it'd be like a
plug it in file for each thing?
So, I'm sorry?
So it'll plug in the word to each shirt design, and then you'll have a specific individual file for each shirt design, and you can just send along. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Sounds like a time saver.
Yeah.
Sounds like a thing. Yeah, like it's a batch process. I think it's maybe a macro kind of deal if you were talking Excel.
I don't know.
Well, you could hire somebody on FreeUp to figure it out. There's Excel experts for $5, non-US.
There you go.
But you don't need, I mean, come on, to fill out just, an occupations or hobbies or something, you can come up with that on your own. And you can also find, people will put out, just Google niche, lists or something like that, and you can come up with something. But a lot of mine are more tailored. Like I have very specific things that, like niches that I want to go into, so not just like administrative assistant, doctor, dentist, that sort of thing.
So Greta, is there like a looming saturation point where, I mean, there's only so many keep calm and do whatever shirts?
Yeah.
I mean, if 1,000 people are making 1,000 of these shirts, that's 1 million of these shirts out there.
Yeah, but that's where you just got to get a little creative. I mean, I am thinking about things all the time, like. Let me see here. I was just thinking about. I was actually writing up another podcast, and let's take the administrative assistant one for example. Okay, so I went on to Pinterest where I get some ideas, and I'm not looking at other people's shirts. What I'm looking at are like quotes or something that like administrative assistant funny, and I came across one that I thought could be really good for a scalable design. It says...
well, you don't have to give it away. You don't have to give it away.
No, I'm not going to use it. But this illustrates how easy it is, and I don't need these ideas. That's why I'm happy to just share them, because I have so many, I just don't need them. It says, just call me Office Ninja, and nobody gets hurt. Okay? So the variable would be, just call me, it would be Office Ninja. All right, so it could be anything. You could put any word there, and that would be the variable. So think about anything else that would make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just develop a list. So come up with 100, just call me blank, and nobody gets hurt. There, now you have 100 T-shirts. And then you can use those, the Office Ninja variable, right? And then that's when you just start building your lists. And then here's...
So how many different designs do you have currently? And how long have you been doing this?
So the second part is a little bit harder to tell you because I've been doing this for... I've had my account for like a year and a half, but I only started taking it seriously like... I say January, but it was actually like December when I started realizing the potential, because I only had about 15 shirts up and I made like $141, and I wasn't even thinking about it. It wasn't even on my radar at all. It was not something that I was watching every day or anything like that. So it was basically since January is when I started to get serious, and I started uploading every day and making it a real job.
Okay, and
so and I have
total
I have 2,000 designs up live right now on Amazon.
And how many different individual designs do you have?
Like you mean like ones that are like variations?
Yeah, like not variations on a theme, like on a.
Oh, I don't even know.
Like if you're doing 100 per theme. Do you have one?
Oh, I've got all sorts of lists, but so most of them I'd say up until about tier 1,000, I would say that those were all like one-offs, right? Or maybe a slight variation. So, and you can even see here. So these are like my Halloween ones, right? And I didn't mind sharing these because I don't care who sees these, and I'll come up with new Halloween stuff next year, But the reason that, but you can see here, like, I'll have like one design and I'll just do 3 different colors, right? And that way I can put them on, so there are only 2 different types of shirts available right now. and it's the standard, the basic anvil, and the premium, which is Bella and Canvas is the brand. And so I'll have like a white text, and that can go on the dark shirts. I'll have a dark text, black usually, and that can go on the lighter shirts. And then I'll have a maybe a colorful one. And I don't do that with all of them. I only did that for Halloween because this is the first time I've ever done Halloween, so I wanted to just kind of see what worked and what didn't. So there is a lot of tinkering around that happens. I'm always tweaking stuff and trying to figure out what sells and what doesn't.
Do you find that the seasonality is going to be easy to manage or not too difficult to manage? Because once Halloween's over, I imagine you're going to pull all of these items down and put up Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. I mean, I don't know what's a good feature to change it to, but no one's going to buy Halloween in December.
Okay, so I kind of have this planned out this way. So Amazon automatically deletes what doesn't sell. If it hasn't sold at all in 90 days, they automatically remove it, okay? So I have things that haven't sold, and they just fall off, and I just replace them. So that's likely what will happen with Halloween. The ones that don't sell, they'll fall off in 90 days regardless. But remember, I'm planning to tier up next month, so I'll have 2,000 more slots available, and that gives me a lot more room to create for. I mean, that's 2,000 more slots for Q4. So yeah, I'll definitely have Thanksgiving, and I'm always on the search for what new is going to happen, because you know what, the eclipse. Who knew that was going to be a thing? Who knew people were going to buy thousands of shirts, like of just one shirt? People are buying just thousands of this one shirt. You know, I had no idea it was going to be a thing. I didn't really participate in that because I just didn't know about it until it was too late. But
to wear for like a 3-minute event.
Yeah, but people are still buying them. That's the crazy part. People are buying them just to have them, I guess. I don't know.
Commemorate their memory of it?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, or gifts, or who knows. But yeah, so Eclipse shirts are still selling, and I'm always looking toward the next season, the next holiday. I try to keep track of trends, but I've just never had trending shirts do well for me.
Did you ever? You never did the Covefe shirts?
Yeah, I totally did. I think I sold one. But, you know, it's also fun. I mean, for me, this is like a creative thing, you know. I get to have a business, but I also get to be really creative and just silly, you know. I mean, that Covefe thing was just silly, you know, the dotard, or what was it, Nambia, or wait, what did he call it? Whatever it was, just stuff like that. I mean, it's just something silly that I don't know. I take a lot of pleasure, and you know, I'm kind of giggling. And actually, I have some programs on my phone that I can quickly make designs and upload them straight from my bed. So if you're I'm sure this isn't your audience, but if you're a stay-at-home mom who nurses, like, this is like the perfect thing, because you can nurse all day long and just sit there and make designs on your phone.
Well, we're always looking to expand our audience, so that's great.
Yeah, you can nurse and watch violent movies that we talk about on our show.
Why not?
Hey, you know, actually, that's what I do, listen to podcasts while I'm designing and while I'm nursing. So yeah, I got the trifecta going on.
Cool.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Robert, do you have any other questions, or should we start to wind down? I know we've sort of meandered quite a bit here, and Greta, you had a bunch of notes, and I just want to give you an opportunity to hit any of the main points that you haven't touched on yet before we sign off for the night.
Oh man, yeah. There's a lot. We could go on for a long time, but you know what? I want to invite you guys to come down here. Is just come down, just come visit. And I know it's hard for a family, but it's like once you're here, once you kind of get into a groove, it's like it would be really hard to leave. I mean, I know that it was for us. And I don't know how you guys are with the seasonal affective disorder, but for me it was terrible. And this, I just don't have that here.
Well, all right. Well, so does that extend to my wife and my kids and my co-host?
Yes, you're all invited. Please come down and visit us. And, we do have, once a month we have voluntarious meetups here. So we do have an active group down here. And, it would be really nice to have other people join. And, you joked about, trying to sell this place to voluntarists. And absolutely, yes. I want volunteers to come down.
How far away is Acapulco? If we're going to think about going to Acapulco. Acapulco's in January, right?
Yeah, or February, I think. But yeah, it's going to be, you're going to have to hop on a plane again. And it won't be like a super long plane ride, but you just can't really drive there. There's not a real good way to, you'd have to drive back to Mexico City and then back over. I can't remember the exact route. I'd have to look it up, but I remember it being really weird, and everyone's like, no, you're not going to, I don't know anybody who's ever driven down there. Everybody just flies, and it's cheap.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that flying in the country is cheap. It's just flying through the United States is different.
Yeah, and a tip that I just found out from someone's Facebook page today, they said that they checked Volaris, I think, is one of the big oh, there you go. Oh
yeah, I mean there is a coastal road, but
it's not really though, because it's cut off. You can't really get there like following the coast. It's not like, I don't even know what it is anymore, I-5 or something like that, where you just take one straight shot down. But the trick is that you want to search in pesos, not in USD, when you're searching online for plane tickets.
Oh, even from Seattle?
No, if you're, so let's say you've already bought your tickets down here, right? Like you went on Alaska Air or whatever, you got your plane tickets to come down here, come to Acapulco. And then what you're going to do is separately book your tickets from Acapulco to PV or vice versa. And that's when you want to get on like Volaris or something and search that in pesos.
Okay, so then you avoid the gringo prices.
Right.
All right, interesting. Well, I think you've given us a lot to think about, and why don't you just do a plug here at the end for how people can find you, your site, and your show.
Okay, sure. I'm on Twitter. It's at Avocado Greta, AVOCADOGRETA. I just put up my website to hold my my podcast, and it's themerchmom.com. Yeah. And let's see. I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. I don't know. Twitter's probably best. But if you have any questions about, there we go. If you have any questions about merch, if you have any questions about voluntarism, if you have any questions about circumcision or Puerto Vallarta, I love helping people out. So reach out to me, and also tell me like where you heard me and stuff, so I know it's not just some stranger just asking me questions.
All right, that sounds good. Robert, any final words? And then I think we might go into a slight rendition of Kathleen Turner Overdrive for our Patreon subscribers, because I have a few bonus questions that I want to throw out there, but I got to entice people.
Yeah, I hear you.
Pony up with those dollars. to pay for this. So we're going to end the interview portion in just a moment here, and then we'll go into Turn the Frogs Gay and go into overdrive. We have to do But Robert, final words in this interview portion, and then we'll go into the overdrive.
Man, I don't really got nothing. I just want to thank our guest here, Greta, for coming on and telling us all about it, the experience of moving down to Mexico. And I applaud her entrepreneurial efforts, and I hope to be as successful as she is. So thanks for that.
Yeah, hey, Robert.
And the invite down.
Seriously. Any questions that you have, just shoot them to me. Merge is like one of those weird things. It's kind of hard to get started and it's confusing at first, but I'm happy to answer questions. And thank you so much, you guys, for having me on. I really appreciate it. I was so touched when you reached out and you asked me to be on the podcast, and it was just such by coincidence that I was also starting my own. So this was really exciting for me. Thank you.
And what's the name of your show, the Merch Mama?
It's the Merch Mom. I should have said Mama. That's what my kids call me.
Oh, that's all right. It's a good name. Merch Mom.
No, I think Merch Mom is actually better because then you get that alliteration there, merchmom.com. Yeah. That was one of the things that Robert really liked about the name Actual Anarchy when it came up. Because we were searching for different names, and I threw a bunch out there, and he's like, that Actual Anarchy one looks pretty good. Are you sure that's available?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, it is. So
it's a good one.
Match it up. So we did.
Match it up.
So, hey, thanks, everyone, for joining us. This has been Actual Anarchy presenting Anarchy in Action. We also do ActualAnarchy.com and a show called the Actual Anarchy Podcast, which is about movies from a Rothbardian and Anarcho-capitalist perspective. You can support our show at ActualAnarchy.com/tipjar. Be sure to check out Greta and her new show they just launched at themerchmom.com. And we're going to move into Kathleen Turn Overdrive. So good night, everyone.
Peace.